Imagine holding off 200 desperate enemy soldiers in the dead of night. Now, imagine doing it completely alone, in a muddy trench with your right hand completely blown off. It sounds like an impossible Hollywood action movie, but for one soldier in 1945, it was just another night on the job. By the spring of 1945, the sprawling, chaotic jungles of Burma had become one of the most unforgiving battlefields on Earth. The Burma campaign wasn't just a war against the opposing army, it was a war against the environment itself. Soldiers battled suffocating heat, monsoon rains that turned the earth into a soupy trench of mud, and diseases that could decimate entire units. To survive this brutal close-quarters combat where visibility was often reduced to just a few feet through the dense canopy, Allied command needed soldiers who absolutely would not retreat under any circumstances. They needed a force immune to the psychological terror of jungle warfare. So they called in the Gurkhas. The Gurkhas are world-renowned soldiers recruited from Nepal, famously guided by the motto, "Better to die than be a coward." They possess a legendary reputation for their ferocity, discipline, and unwavering loyalty. This is the unbelievable true story of one of those men, Lakhiman Gurung. In this video, we are going to break down exactly how he found himself surrounded in the dark, the catastrophic moment he lost his primary weapon, and the sheer willpower it took to survive. Stick around, because the physical proof his commanders found the next morning is going to leave you speechless. On the night of May 12th, the 4th Battalion of the 8th Gurkha Rifles had established a defensive perimeter near the village of Tongda to cut off the Japanese escape route across the Irrawaddy River. The night was pitch black, the kind of oppressive, heavy darkness where you can't see your own hand in front of your face. At 1:20 a.m., the eerie silence of the jungle was shattered. 200 Japanese soldiers, desperate to break through the Allied lines and avoid being trapped, launched a massive, coordinated surprise attack directly at the camp. But standing between that entire force and his sleeping battalion was Lakhiman Gurung and 2 other soldiers in a tiny, mud-filled forward trench on a narrow jungle track. The enemy immediately zeroed in on their position, realizing it was the key to breaking the perimeter. Shouting erupted from the tree line, and a rain of fragmentation grenades started falling from the dark, thudding into the soft mud all around them. Lakhiman didn't flinch. When the first grenade landed inside the trench, he snatched it up without hesitation and hurled it back into the jungle. Boom! When the second grenade dropped, he did the exact same thing. Threw it back. Boom! He was operating purely on lethal instinct. But then came the third. It landed just out of reach on the lip of the trench. He lunged forward to grab it, but he was a split second too late. The grenade detonated at point-blank range, exploding directly in his right hand. The blast was catastrophic. It completely shattered his hand and right arm, blowing off his fingers, and peppered his face, torso, and right leg with burning, jagged shrapnel. His 2 comrades in the trench were caught in the blast and severely wounded, putting them completely out of action. Lakhiman was now bleeding out, half-blinded in his right eye, and entirely alone as 200 enemy soldiers charged his position with bayonets fixed. By all logic, this is where the story should end. The human body naturally goes into shock from trauma that severe. But Lakhiman wasn't just a soldier. He was a Gurkha. With his right hand destroyed, he reached down with his left and drew his traditional heavy-bladed kukri knife. The kukri is an iconic forward-curving blade feared worldwide, known for its devastating chopping power. He slammed the blade deep into the mud in front of his trench and screamed into the dark, "Come and fight a Gurkha!" For the next 4 brutal hours, Lakhiman held the line alone. This wasn't just a matter of holding the trigger. It was an act of mechanical genius and impossible endurance. Bleeding heavily, he used only his left hand to fire his bolt-action Lee Enfield rifle. He had to brace the heavy weapon against his body, fire, manually cycle the bolt, and load new stripper clips of ammunition into the magazine, all with one functioning arm. Wave after wave of Japanese soldiers rushed his trench in the dark. Every time they charged, illuminated only by the blinding flashes of his muzzle fire, he met them with point-blank shots. When they got too close, he fought them off, refusing to let a single soldier pass his knife. The psychological toll on the attackers was immense. They were being stalled by a continuous, devastating wall of fire, unaware it was coming from a single, half-dead man. He fought through the excruciating pain, the massive blood loss, and the impossible odds until the sun finally began to rise. When dawn finally broke, the relentless attacks stopped. The surviving enemy forces retreated into the jungle, and reinforcements rushed to Lockeman's trench. They expected to find it overrun. Instead, they found him barely clinging to life, his uniform soaked in blood, still waiting for the next attack. But what shocked his battalion wasn't just that he had survived the night with a shattered arm, it was the physical proof of what he had done. Spread out directly in front of his position, tangled in the jungle undergrowth, were the bodies of 31 enemy soldiers. One man, with one hand, had completely broken the back of the assault. For his unbelievable bravery and absolute refusal to yield, Lockeman was awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest and most prestigious military decoration for valor in the British honor system.
But the most powerful part of his story is what happened next.
True to the quiet, steadfast nature of the Gurkhas, he didn't let the fame, the medals, or his severe life-altering injuries dictate the rest of his life. Even after losing his right hand and the sight in his right eye permanently, he finished his required military service. He then returned to a remote, quiet village in Nepal, far away from the horrors of war, and lived a simple life as a farmer. After surviving one of the most violent nights in military history, he traded his rifle for a plow and lived in absolute peace, passing away a hero at the remarkable age of 92.